How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to the House of Fata Morgana, Requiem for Innocence. It feels like it's been a while, but it hasn't. It's just I missed 1 week because I got really sick. I'm still kind of feeling off, but I'm doing okay. Before we get too far into this, next week is a special week. We're going to be doing a democracy week. So if you guys have ever wanted to have an idea or a hand in like some of the stuff that you'll see on the content on the channel in the upcoming year, now's the time. We'll be hosting kind of like public straw polls for people who are involved in the channel. They'll be posted on the community tab of the channel, and like we'll just kind of have like general elimination rounds. We'll have all the options, and then we'll slowly, like every day, I'll remove the option with the least votes, and we'll just eliminate down to the last selected. And then these are just going to be the titles of games I'm going to be anticipating to play in the next year whenever I get around to like that time. Timetables will be varied based on like the day of the recording and, you know, what's going on with the series currently and in that slot. But regardless, if you want to participate, please stick around. I highly recommend you subscribe and do all that stuff just because you'll be able to more easily find everything. But right now I'm working with the patrons. They're kind of helping me. I put out a video of a patron cast. I always make my December ones public, and it's the December one, but it only came out like a week ago. But I have listed there a lot of the titles that are going to be on the list, and I've got a few others that are going to be added because the patrons are talking with me and they're kind of like helping me add something to the list here and there. And so yeah, we're going to see how that all plays out, but I don't want you to miss it. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to that. But let's jump right back into the story. So we're now in part 2. We finished part 1 and got the kind of like epilogue of that part and the like of Jayran's story and like her relationship with Lord Baroner. Really sad, really hard to almost hard to watch, honestly. But now we're starting part 2, and because this is likely to go start involving the Beast, I believe it's likely that we're going to be seeing the whole story about the nun and like where she came from. However, we also could start seeing stuff about oh gosh, what's their name? Like Nellie and I can't remember his name, but the boy and girl, the brother-sister couple, they could be around this time, but I have a feeling we're going to cover them last because like I think we're going in the order of like the people who interacted with Morgana, like along her story, because essentially this is Morgana's story, but we're seeing it from the perspectives of the people who twisted her life so much. But we'll have to see about that. Anyway, so we got this old man. We opened up with a quote from the Psalms in the Bible, and so we're gonna be kind of talking about that. I might rib my eye a little bit. I'm getting I've got like a nasty sore here, so like it's not bad, but it's painful, so I might rub it a little bit. It also might mean this might be a shorter video just because I only got so much stamina in me before I'm gonna have to just put aside for now. But let's just jump into it and see how this goes. 'Tis a great shame that happened to Ginevra. Oh, it's Jacopo. I didn't expect this at all. Maybe we just followed Jacopo the whole time. My prediction's off. The post-revolution merrymaking continued into the wee hours of the morning. After things settled down, the men returned to the city. An elderly man calling himself Odilon, I guess that's what, Odilon, showed himself before me. Despite his evident age, the man stood tall and spoke in a clear, confident voice. Looking into his deep sapphire eyes, I felt as though I could see everything I'd borne witness to in these walls engraved within them. Odilon revealed himself as an ally of the revolution and has been in contact with Ginevra. Had things proceeded as intentionally planned, she was to take power and build the land anew with my assistance, but great change is never without its cost. Nevertheless, I am unspeakably grateful for how swiftly you managed to dethrone the former lord. Without your heroic efforts, we would still... Enough with the ass-kissing. Tell me what you are and exactly what you're hoping to get out of me. Don't need to be so apprehensive, I assure you. I am more than happy to tell you everything you wish to know. I served as counsel to the late Lord Jean-Francois Berner, and 'twas I who aided the revolution from within the manor's walls, coordinating with Ginevra on the outside. So that'd make you the one who ordered the gates open for us, then? Verily. Furthermore, I arranged to have a number of the guards turncoat. Well, you did fine work. We would have lost a lot more men without your effort. I have to ask, though, Where were you when it was actually happening? I don't recall seeing you anywhere. I took liberty of finding myself shelter. How fortunate for you to be able to kick back and watch, only to crawl out of your hole after we relieved the Lord of his head. Yeah, Odilon definitely got a pretty solid deal there, right? Like, he orchestrates a rebellion, gets it to a position where if it succeeds, he's gonna be in a very favored place. But because he's able to kind of like backtrack himself out, and because the people whom he was working with were turncoats, he could hide and come out, and if the assassination attempt failed, then all his conspirators would be put to death. They likely might try and out him, but he might be able to convince Lord Baroner that he wasn't involved at all, was a trusted ally the entire time, and then get out of punishment, you know? Like, kind of a win-win. Might you, perchance, be suggesting this old bag of bones take up the blade? I would only serve as an impediment to your success. 30 years ago, mayhap, but hardly could I point a sword straight today. Or perhaps you would say that I, as a supporter of your cause, should have been present for the occasion regardless. But of little aid I would have been, merely dying a fool's death, becoming naught but another body upon which the living would trek. You're skilled with your words, old man. Of course, 'tis my job. There's but one service I can provide you, my knowledge. Knowledge? Meaning you intend to continue to serve as the Lord Consul? For what other reason would I lend my hand to this revolution? You expect me to just take your word, to trust you? Surely you are aware that you cannot rightfully govern this territory without the acknowledgement of the neighboring counts and the king. I have knowledge and connections which would prove invaluable in establishing you as legitimate and qualified to inherit the throne. Yeah, I know. I did not saunter into here blind. I still hadn't figured out how I would accomplish that, but... Wait, I recognize you from somewhere. I remember. You were here during the revolt 3 years ago. He was at the party, wasn't he? You're the one who helped Baroner escape. 'Twas indeed I. That's all the more reason not to trust you. You sat back and watched, not a darn peep, as the clan of the Lord left his people to rot. Like hell I'm letting you be my consul. You are an astute young man, but still far too green for your own good. And you fail to fully separate yourself from your old life. Excuse me. I assure you, I was no more fond of Lord Baroner's predilections than you. But I am sure you are aware he was quick to send his opponents off to the gallows. And he would be no more merciful to his consul than to a slum dweller. My objections would have been ensured but one thing, a swift and meaningless death. Moreover, you knew it was not yet time and stayed your hand, nay? I too had reached the same conclusion, and was awaiting the appropriate time. The perfect time to rearrange the board. You must dispense with the childish emotion that controls you. Act exclusively in service of that which most benefits you. And you cannot do so without someone to guide you. You are still merely a fledgling young man. You know not up from down in this vast new world. And you have neither the army nor weapons with which to defend yourself. Should you go out into the world unaccompanied, it will snap your neck before they feel the hands upon your skin. And what benefits are you hoping to reap from this? You're not acting out of love for the people, that much is obvious. A chance to fulfill my duties as consul to the Lord. My experts were largely unassumed under Lord Baroner's rule. 'Twas a deeply frustrating time for me. Though, if I may be blunt, perhaps I should say that I would like to die knowing I have accomplished something worthwhile in my life. I can promise you I have no intention of mistreating the people for my own personal amusement. You've still given me no reason to actually trust you. Allow my work to speak for my words. allow me to proffer unto you my knowledge, that it might be of service to you. I don't completely trust this man, nor do I think I ever will. He's after something, probably wants to use me as a puppet under the guise of assisting me as consular. He makes a good point, though. I'll need someone to show me the ropes if I want any chance of governing effectively. Have you come to a decision? Okay. It's a pleasure to have you, Odilon. Odilon. At your service. That said, try anything. You'll be out the door faster than you can blink. Understood. Good. Now, if I may, I would like to offer my first instruction. And what would that be? You will need to make a formal proclamation of your succession. There are still many among your people who do not know who you are. Thus, you may declare yourself the rightful heir, the lost son of Lord Beriner's predecessor. You must assume a new name. Say again? The name by which you were known before is but a veil beneath which you guarded your noble identity. And the time has come now for you to reclaim your true self. Hold on a second. I'm not... Yes, I am aware of your lineage. Okay, then what name do you suppose I should take? You shall assume his name. Jean-Francois Berner. Is this some kind of sick joke? You're insane if you think I'm taking on that psychopathic killer's name. Why this green earth? Would I ever want to call myself after the man I dethroned? Among the nobility, names are oft passed on from father to son, from brother to brother. But why his name? A name associated with fear and tyranny. Are you trying to hobble me before I take my first step? You will remove the stain of his deeds left upon that name. Lord Berner killed his father, brothers, and all the families in attendance, as Genevra likely told you. Why do you suppose he killed them? Are you mocking me, old man? He killed them because he was a damn madman. Lord Berner was not the rightful heir. Excuse me? He was merely a stand-in, to be disposed of and quietly replaced when the time came. However, he grew vivacious for power, fixated on becoming the Lord himself. So he killed everyone who stood in his way, both Berner family and the attendants who knew the truth. Though he failed to realize that the Lord had sired another son. You, the rightful inheritor of the Jean-Francois Berner name. So that's our story, huh? I'm not the fake. He was. When the truth is revealed, the people will be enraptured, and, crucially, the damage to the Berner family name will be minimized. After all, the Berners were but victims in this charlatan's arvas. As you are to take on the Berner family name, it is you who benefit. The reputation you inherit is as unblemished as possible. I don't like it either, man, but this guy does know what he's talking about. Nobles were finicky this way. Furthermore, you have nothing to gain from keeping your present name. No longer are you the man you were in the slums. You must become a new man entirely. Gah. Enough. I need time to think. A day. Just give me one day. I cannot. 'Tis a matter of the utmost importance. You must act swiftly, for the opportunity will pass and the tides turn against you anon. The people are on your side for now. However, should you fail to expeditiously demonstrate that you, as the new lord, are likewise on their side, you will find yourself with more than one count upon your doorstep. You must decide now. So. Alright. I swallow my pride. I knew there would need to be some changes before I embarked on this road. So this isn't unexpected, just moving quicker than I was prepared for. A wise decision. Now, before we move on to the next order of business, I must ask, are you physically well enough to remain on your feet for a short while longer? You will need to stand before your people and make a speech. Nevertheless, it is evident that you are wounded from your battle. and 'twould reflect poorly on your accomplishments were you to collapse during your first appearance. I'll be fine. I can hold myself up long enough to give a speech. Ho ho ho. Youth, what a wonderful thing. You must be sure to give your rest once you've finished. I will arrange for the best doctor to come examine you. Appreciate it. Now then, let us be off. You need merely repeat after me. Hey, did you hear the new Lord's speech? Berner was a fraud the entire time. What? No way! But gosh, I skipped work and gone up to the manor to see it. You still got a chance. Go down the square. Town crier spread the word of the whole thing. Did you hear? The new lord led charge to the revolution, and he was the real Jean-Francois Berner. I heard. I was there for his speech. He's so young, and easy on the eyes to boot. They say he spent years living in the slums, hiding his true identity. That must have been so difficult for him. At long last, we're free from our suffering. Free from the terror of Lord Berner. Cheers for the new lord! Oh, give me a break. You're no damn lord. How goes it? How goes it, Marie? You look like you ain't slept in weeks. Where's your smile, girl? Today's a day of celebrating. Oh, go F yourself. What? You're the one who pushed him into this. Huh? What do you get pissy about? You pressured him into the dumb revolution, into becoming the effing lord. Whoa, that ain't what happened at all. Jacopo's the one who proposed the whole thing. Bull crap! He was trying to talk sense into you at the Midsummer Festival. God, for the love of Christ, what crawled up your butt and died? The bat crap a-hole's gone. We got someone on our side in power. What's the complaint about? Ugh. Is there anything in that me-head of yours? What was that? You do realize he can never come back now, right? He's the Lord. He's gone, and he's gone for good. Up there in the manor all by himself. And you dragged him up to the top of that hill and left him there. I get you want someone to take this out on, but Jacopo's also the one who proposed becoming the Lord. No. I didn't push a darn thing on him. He showed up one day with a ring bearing the Berner family crest. Then told everyone whose royalty had a claim to the throne. This is insane. It was his word that sparked the revolution. There's no way. Jacopo is royalty. You need to get better sense of humor. My thoughts exactly at first too, but then I saw the crest on the ring. It's the real deal. Did you miss the whole part where he put the ring on in front of everyone before we stormed the manor? His whole spiel about being the heir? That was pretty darn convincing, if I do say so myself. You seriously think I was there for some stupid pep talk? Ain't his friend? I feel like a friend should be rooting for success, you know? That's what I'm doing. Can't say that much. Anyway, I got a hot date with a couple of kegs. I'm out of here. Unless you want to come with. We're gonna be partying all night long. Like heck I'm coming. Just thought I'd ask. Try not to look sour all the time, okay? You're much prettier when you're smiling. And with that and a m'lady, he goes right off to the bar. What to do? Choke on a dick, ass. Duly noted. Later. I can't root for him because he's my friend. I know better than anyone that he's in over his head. All I can do is pray for you, Jacopo. Pray that you'll always be the Jacopo we know. That this won't change you. That we're still friends, right? Even if we're worlds apart now? You know, he probably could elevate her out of it. Like, couldn't he? Just make her a courtier? After giving me just enough time to recover, Odilon quickly got to work instructing me in everything I needed to know to be the Lord. My first priority was revitalizing the city, cleaning up the mess my predecessor had left it in. As much as I wanted to ensure that everyone had food and water, it simply wasn't possible to make it happen overnight. We would need to significantly expand our farmland, build additional granaries, repair existing irrigation canals, not to mention crack down on crime and disorder. There was so much to do, it was almost dizzying. The last time I had time to do was whine. That said, none of it could happen with a snap of the fingers. It would take time and manpower, which meant we would have to use existing stores in the meantime. I asked the people, particularly among the upper class, to relinquish ownership of their stockpiles for me to redistribute among the population. That would allow everyone to make it through the traditional period, I figured. Naturally, though, not everyone was happy with the arrangement. But the cries of dissatisfaction were drowned out by the cheers of support when I explained that it was for everyone's sake, that we would need to band together to carry the whole city through what would probably be a rocky transition. As I was patting myself on the back for a job well done, Odilon shook his head and said, "'Twill hold a year at most." We have enough stores to last at least 3 years, though. 2 if we want to be extra safe. They will set your manor ablaze long before the stores run dry. Excuse me? Why would they? I'm obviously doing everything in my power to revitalize the city. And I was the one who freed them from the claws of tyranny. The people only see results. Though they accept your promise of improvement now, if in a year's time they do not see those words bear fruit, their trust in you will wither away. That you came from the slums is viewed now as a heroic rise to power, but your past will soon be turned against you, used to delegitimize you. He's right, obviously, man. Politics. I really think I get how politics works. It's very Machiavelli. It's sad, but it really is. There's a lot of truth behind the prince and his observations about human nature and politics in general. Not that I'm saying it's a guidebook of how to be a politician, but it's a guidebook on how people work. And so, if you've never read the book, I highly recommend it, just because if you ever want to understand why politics and politicians do and say the things they do, it's really pretty much the guidebook, because the experience that the prince had are based on real events where he came to power, tried to give everything he could to try and benefit the community, and he was undercut and effectively run out of town and nearly executed by his political enemies who just sought to take advantage of him. He then was able to take over a new princedom by kind of usurping a corrupt lord, but he kind of did it with a more iron fist, but found a lot more success. And so he published his findings. Again, it's not a guidebook on just how everyone should be, but more an observation on the harsh realities of humanity and of rulership. I don't think it justifies the types of actions that are being made. In fact, I think it highlights that the greatest amongst us can rule with dignity and respect, but they have to understand that it can't be in a vacuum. They have to understand that every action has a consequence and that perspective is everything. In fact, there's some guiding principles I think every leader needs to understand. And one of the main ones is that no matter what, everything is your fault. When things go wrong, it's your fault, even if you couldn't control it. Crops have a poor season because the weather turned cold early. The Lord has to take responsibility, has to find a solution. There is a plague. It's the Lord's responsibility, has to find a solution. If there is a crisis in the city and somebody is there's a violent exchange between guards and the people. If the people start a riot and guardsmen kill somebody, that's the Lord's fault. He has to pay the price for it, essentially. A lot of politics is about leaders trying to avoid blame for what happens on their site, on their watch, even if it's beyond their control. But a true leader knows and understands that accepting that responsibility and moving forward and proposing fixes is really what's necessary. And unfortunately, that's a hard pill to swallow for somebody who has the motivation to lead. Oftentimes they see themselves in a very high light. I think it's kind of a necessity for somebody who's going to truly be successful, because a lot of times a leader needs to also be confident enough to be able to make a decision, believe it's the right one, and not constantly live in regret and self-doubt. They have to have that confidence, they have to have that self-determination, but it comes with pride, and it comes with a sense of self-righteousness that can oftentimes be at odds with what a true leader needs to have. I think one of the best exemplars of this, even though they aren't the perfect individual, is George Washington, the first U.S. president. The first US president was really interesting because he didn't even run for president. He was elected by the people who just loved him so much because of his reputation. But he'd earned that reputation by being a genuinely good leader and a genuinely good person who was never power hungry. He was thrust into positions of authority and accepted it as his duty and strove to do the best that he could. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. He made mistakes. He had failings. In fact, I believe he was a slave owner. I mean, it's hard to really fundamentally agree with somebody who once owned people. But there was so much that was right about him, specifically in how he handled power. For instance, there was a lot of political discourse in England after, the war was over. One of the reasons why the war did get wrapped up the way it did was that England could no longer afford it. They also just were tired of sending their young men to die for a bunch of territory that had nothing but effectively rabble, prisoners, and just naysayers, and it was just wasn't seen as worth it. It's just why are we doing this? Why are we spending all these resources? And at first they were winning, but then they started losing ground. It's come on, we should be able to do this. We have one of the strongest fighting forces in the world. We have one of the largest navies. But then you got to think they had so much territory to cover. Of course they weren't going to be able to throw everything they had at it, especially when they had other enemies like the French and others who were just wanting to just take advantage of everything that was going on, and we're looking at all their other territories saying that could be ours. Obviously Britain didn't have the resources to truly quell what was going on, and they were just getting tired of the war, so they pulled out. And a lot of political discourse that fueled that pullout was saying, oh, the colony's going to fall apart. They don't know how to govern themselves. They don't have any true leaders. They're claiming this democracy thing. It's not going to work. This great experiment's going to be a fraud. Someone's going to rise up and usurp themselves and become a new king, and then we can go back over. They'll be grateful for us to come back. We'll reconquer the king, reestablish England rule, and everything will go right back to where it was supposed to be. And a big reason why that probably didn't happen at all was because during the really rough transition where the Constitution didn't exist yet and they were trying to figure it out, and then in the meantime they were effectively gridlocked because everyone immediately didn't agree on how to run a country, go figure. When they elected and could get behind George Washington as president, he accepted the role despite the fact that he wasn't even running. He served 2 terms and then voluntarily said no more. He said, I'm done being president. They didn't have term limits at the time. And there was a strong number of people who legitimately wanted to vote him to be king. They wanted to immediately say all right, democracy, it's kind of fun, but let's just democratically make him king. He's obviously the best person. And he legitimately said, no, that's not happening. And tell you what, after my 2nd term, I'm just gone. You guys, we got a functioning government at this point. We have it moving. We have an economy that's rough, but it's on its legs. We've been recognized by other nations, and we're not at each other's throats. And the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the branches of government, the executive, legislative, judicial, the checks and balances were working. The system had stabilized enough. And he said, all right, I've done my duty. I'm done. Elect the next president. And he walked away and he retired. Do you know how amazing that is? How many leaders do you think in the US alone, let alone your country, wherever you are watching this from, how many leaders do you genuinely think would voluntarily stop being in charge if they could somehow get away with it without incurring legal ramifications or political backswing? In fact, we see nations all the time that claim to be democratic but aren't. I'm not going to say any names, but we all know a few examples if you've been paying attention at all. Anytime I hear about a president getting almost unanimously reelected, despite the fact that there's a lot of blatant protests that are severely cracked down on, and when political adversaries suddenly vanish or get arrested for various crimes suspiciously around elections, it just seems pretty obvious, right, that somebody's letting the power get a little to their head, and that doesn't really feel like what a democracy was ever supposed to be at all. But George Washington was the exemplar of somebody who literally just gave up the power and refused to acknowledge it, and even condemned the people who were clattering for him to be made a king. He flat out told them, you guys idiots, what did we just do? We just overthrew tyranny, and you want to make me the new tyrant. Do you know how lucky we were that somebody that upright and just who was able to be a good leader and yet didn't want to be a leader was put in charge of the country like that? Like, it's amazingly lucky. Well, we're far from a perfect country. Heck, we're probably, at this point, we've had so much going for us that it just makes all the bad stuff that we do and have done just that much more, like, terrible to recognize. But, like, what I'm trying to establish is that idea of, like, how rare it was to have somebody who could legitimately, like, hold an office and do the best job they could and have no desire to actually have that power, and only did it because people believed in him and wanted him to do it. That's freaking amazing. So yeah, long story short, read The Prince. Be grateful that, like, George Washington was, like, the Chad he was. And despite the fact that he was a flawed individual himself, he'd probably be the first to tell you that. And that's a great thing. And I really wish we had more leaders in the world like that. In fact, I'd gather that there are plenty of people who can be good leaders like that, but they don't tend to become the Jeff Bezos and, like, you know, US presidents of the world, because the people who are able to make the decisions that are necessary in order to get the acclimate and to muddle through the muck and essentially, like, you know, be like, they have to be so cutthroat, they have to be so greedy, they have to be so focused on success at the expense of anything else that could get in their way, that even the best of people that I feel like that get in charge of companies and get in charge of governments are just inherently flawed. Because in order to be that cutthroat, in order to be that determined to be successful, that you're willing to undercut and willing to subverse and, like, make the backdoor deals necessary to actually find the success necessary, you essentially have to be rich and you have to be, like, heartless, really. So, like, am I against people who are politicians? Am I against people who are, like, owners of mega businesses? No. I just have an inherent understanding that I truly just do not believe you can be truly moral in the current systems and get to those heights. I think a rich person who's truly, truly generous, not generous to, like, make it look good or as, like, a front for, like, effectively tax evasion, would never get that rich. Because I think a truly generous person would be content with a certain amount of wealth that would, like, set them and their families up for, like, you know, essentially life. And then they would be giving a lot of it away. They would be the kind of person who would be heavily involved in developing infrastructure, in job creation, in new alternatives for things like power and energy, for cleaning up the ocean, for building forests and saving the Amazon and, like, preserving things for not them and even their direct, like, children, but for, like, the world as a whole, for science and progress, for the sick and the homeless and the famishing and the famined and the abandoned. Can and are there people who do good in those cases? Absolutely. Could they do a lot more? Absolutely. I'd like to think that power wouldn't corrupt me, that money wouldn't corrupt me, but I don't think any of us could know that. Like, a lot of us can sit on our high horse and I could be like, oh, I judge all these people, but, like, the reality is, like, if I were in their shoes, like, I don't know. I just don't think I could get into their shoes, because either I turn out to be the good person I think I am, and I would end up just giving most of my wealth away besides what would just allow me to be comfortable, or I would absolutely succumb. I would do the smart thing and just become incredibly stable and, like, influential and I don't know, send myself to space, because I totally love to go to space. I totally get that dream, honestly. I get it. I can't fault them, because I totally love to do that, but at the same time, there's a lot of other good stuff you could be doing, but I digress. Wow, this was a rant, but give me into politics. I don't ever want to get into, like, super, like, specific politics, because I don't think that matters, honestly. Get me into, like, morality, philosophy. Get me into, like, what makes a good leader. I will talk about that to the end of days, because if there's one thing I can believe in, I can believe that out there somewhere, I don't know if you could be listening to this, but out there somewhere are the future leaders of this country, of your country, of businesses and of scientific endeavors. Like somewhere out there, I could be talking to the one person who's going to be in the history books someday. Not going to be me. I've said goodbye to that ship. It's not going to happen. But you could make the change that makes all the difference. And if I can make you believe that you can make a difference and that you don't have to be truly terrible in order to make success happen, maybe you can be the one that proves us wrong. Maybe you can be the Jeff Bezos that changes the world rather than changes your life. But I digress. Again, I could believe in Jeff Bezos. Maybe he'll become even more giving. Maybe perhaps he will make the change in the world that I just don't see him doing currently. Because I'm me, I'm not him. I can't judge that. Not really. But there's a certain level of where you're like, why? Why do you have that much and haven't done much with it yet, it seems. But I digress. He's done more than charity than I've done. I mean, can't fault him there. I can't give even $1 million to charity. I'm sure he's done more that, like, probably multiple times this year. But still, you just got to think about all the big picture and all that. So, whoever you are out there, you world shaper, you who's watching this, be the better person. Prove me wrong. And prove that you don't have to follow the path that Jacopo's about to walk down. Where the power and the influence and the cutthroat nature of the higher echelons doesn't corrupt you. Anyway, we'll continue. I'm very sorry for that rant. Well, I'm not really sorry, but I'm sorry it was so long. I hope you at least understood what I was trying to say, and about how I'm not trying to make it political. I'm not saying specific people. Well, I guess I did call out rich people, but to be fair, I mean, come on. Anyway, moving on. Jeez. If there's ever some point that's like gonna get me like in trouble, maybe I'm being a little too open about my thoughts here, but I'm passionate about these kinds of things. And I would rather get flack for wishing people were more morally like driven to just do good. I'd love it if they proved me wrong. And I'd love it if the world just could become the place it could be, the much better place it could be. But anyway. You must produce for them tangible results. God, I knew this wouldn't be easy, but still. It boils my blood to think my predecessor sat on his butt all day. Did he even accomplish anything in his entire time as Lord? I can think of only one truly positive effect of his regime. His support for the arts. His what? Surely you've seen the numerous pieces of art adorning the mansion's walls. He would often treat himself with works from the finest artists and artisans in the land. Oh, you mean all those paintings and vases and fancy drapes? Bunch of worthless junk, every last bit of it. None of it will do anything to fill people's empty stomachs. 'Twould seem you understand not the value of art. However, he could sell it, right? What if he sold most of the art to other nobles to shore up the funds until they got the economy back in gear? Well, I did grow up in the slums. Do you know what purpose art serves? To make you feel better? It's nice to have around, but not much more than that. Bribes, my boy. Those who hunger for power similarly hunger for ways to flaunt it, and the singular piece of art that fills that role. Some have a genuine appreciation for art, others merely use it as a tool. But nonetheless, skilled craftsmen, artisans, and their work naturally gravitate towards those with power. 'Twould be wise for you to consider dressing somewhat less pedestrian soon. Now, we should be able to put the former Lord's possessions to good use in helping you build up valuable relationships. You mean to start handing out bribes? Indeed. But remember, they are negotiation tools. You must use them where they provide you the greatest returns. Negotiation, huh? Alright, I think I see what you're getting at. If I want to revitalize the city in a year, I'm going to need the help from my good neighbors. In exchange for provisions and workers, I offer various counts pieces from Baroner's collection. Sounds about right?
Precisely. My. You are much cleverer than I expected a man from the slums. Now, if only you would become accustomed to the manner of thinking, you could become a fine leader in short order.
I appreciate the concern, old man.
I will dispatch messengers and arrange meetings with the counts so we can begin anon. And I hope I do not have to remind you, but you will need to be very careful with your words, Lord Baroner.
Yeah, I know.
You seem quite tired, Lord Baroner.
You think? Every day I go to meet someone new, I spend all my travel time learning how to read and write. It's enough to exhaust anyone.
'Tis necessary, nonetheless. Literacy will only...
Yes, I know. You said I look tired. I'm telling you why that is. I never said I had a problem with it.
I overstepped. My apologies. Your diligence has been invaluable in earning the Count's favor by Lord Baroner. They think quite fondly of you.
Is that so? Because that's certainly not the impression I'm getting. They put on a facade of friendliness, but beneath the surface they're all laughing, trying to figure out how to best use me, or to just outright scoffing. Not one of them sincerely trusts me. I'm just a pawn to them.
We are all pieces on one another's boards.
What's that supposed to mean?
'Twould be most prudent to consider that unqualified friendship simply does not exist in high society. All interpersonal relationships are built upon a foundation of mutual benefit, save for exceedingly rare, short-lived exceptions. Nonetheless, you should not consider being used as a bad thing. We all climb atop each other's boards, offering ourselves up as powerful pieces. And so do they offer themselves to us. Should you wish to survive in high society, you must always ensure your peers see you as a piece worth playing.
And that's why I'd be a terrible leader, probably. Because, frankly, I understand the game, I can play the game, but I honestly don't know if I could make myself a valuable piece. Because I don't know how far I'd be willing to go, how cutthroat I'd be willing to be, especially for other people. I'd be terrible. I'd be a terrible ruler. I think in a lot of ways I could be a good ruler. But I'd be quickly kicked out. That would mean you're putting yourself out there as well, old man. Indeed, I am your pawn, Lord Baroner. I offer myself to you, and in your using me, I gain this position as consul to the Lord. 'Tis a far more practical and reliable system than one founded on something so uncertain as emotion, would you not say? Which is to say, I'm a pawn to him as much as he is to me. I suppose so. Then I too will have to ensure I remain useful, lest I be swept aside as another baroner and brought in to take my place.
Ho ho ho. Sharp words, my lord. But worry not, for I have no qualms with your performance at present. Now, Lord Baroner, we must discuss your next.
Hold on a sec, would you?
Yes, sir.
Do you mind not calling me Lord Baroner in private? I can understand why you'd want to keep this charade up even when no one's looking. But frankly, I'm just not comfortable with it.
Very well. Then, my lord, it shall be.
Can't say I'm surprised he won't use my real name. But still, yes, that'll do. Thank you.
Not at all. Now back to business, my lord.
Took long enough, but we're finally starting to see some real progress. Who knew negotiation was so much work?
You should be proud of your accomplishments, my lord. 'Tis hardly an easy feat to amass this much manpower and resources in only 6 months.
Doing better than expected, huh? How's public opinion looking? Reports should be coming in by now, I assume?
Some dissatisfaction, but numbers are within expectations.
Dissatisfied? With what? I spent every waking moment the past 6 months working my butt off to revitalize the city. If people aren't happy with that, they should be jumping with joy.
My lord, you must understand that it's impossible to satisfy everyone. A degree of discontent is to be expected.
Even so, it should be blindingly obvious how much better I'm doing than the previous basket of rainbows and kittens.
All is forgotten on the gentle ebb and flow of time. Past injustices matter little in the face of the present.
It hasn't even been a year.
The people do not genuinely care about you, nor will they ever. They merely sing your praise one day and forget about you the next. I believe we have been through this before.
Surely there's someone out there who gets it.
That is wishful thinking, my lord. You could work yourself to the very bones, and the people would merely see you as fulfilling your duty. You must not seek their approval. More will be expected of you, and more will be the subject of your undeserved resentment for the simple reason that you exist in a position of power. Only those in similar position can understand your hardships. Ultimately, then you have two choices. And either dedicate yourself in the service of your people, or mercilessly exploit them like your predecessor.
Basically, either your fellows really like you, but your people hate you, or your people tolerate you, and your fellows are looking to take advantage of you.
I won't follow in that bastard's footsteps. I pray your heart remain true, that you remain a wise and caring lord.
Dang it. So what specifically aren't people happy about?
The foremost is food shortages. This was anticipated, and all we can do is ask them to persevere. The second comes from the upper class.
Go on.
They are quite naturally displeased about being made to surrender their stockpiles. It would be prudent to offer them remuneration in the near future.
They're doing well enough for themselves already,
my lord.
I know, just letting off some steam. So I get the butter up all the rich men in town. Wonderful. The whole idea was to help the less well-off, yet here I am.
I understand. You are not pleased about this, my lord, but do remember you have more to fear from the few upper class banding together than the entirety of the slums.
He's like an example of being careful not to fear them, but hey, whatever.
For they wield the most troublesome weapon, an upper-class upbringing. They know precisely who to tell and what to tell you to tarnish your reputation in the blink of an eye. And do not placate yourself by thinking the common man will see through the attempt to undermine you. Even if they did, an unlikely supposition, they could do nothing to counter it. They are powerless.
But I was the people at the bottom. It was the people at the bottom that pulled the most weight organizing and executing the revolution.
No.
They were the people who took the hits.
'Twas an exceptional set of circumstances that allowed the revolution to take place as it did, and not least of which was the lord's status as unequivocal evil in the eyes of the people. You will not find them all agreeing on anything so readily now.
All right, I get it. The point is, I gotta win over all the rich people, or my whole operation is gonna come to a grinding halt, right? So as much as it rubs me the wrong way, I'll do what I have to do.
A wise decision, my lord.
Is that the last of the complaints?
No. The influx of immigrants has caused an increase in general unrest.
Of course it has. I bring them in to help with the restoration effort, and they go and cause a whole new set of problems. It's likely I'm chasing my tail here.
As long as there are people under your authority, you will never be completely free of strife.
You're telling me... So, would increasing the guard's presence in the city help keep the peace?
Most of those with the training necessary are already deployed, meaning you would need to have new guards trained from the ground up. You will have to mobilize them where they are most needed.
In other words,
tighten your grip on the slums.
So now I've got to take away their freedom.
I know you have a personal attachment to that area, my lord, but you must cast that aside. No longer are you a man you once were. The slums should never have been allowed to fall into such lawlessness in the first place. You will merely be restoring it to its proper state. If you truly wish to bring prosperity to the land, you must eventually scale down and then eliminate the slums.
But if I get rid of the slums, I'll be getting rid of their home.
My lord.
I know, I understand what you're getting at, and I understand that everything you're saying is perfectly logical. Can we hold off on that for a bit? A bunch of guys down there formed a peacekeeper group to, keep the peace. They'd gladly help out if we could talk to them, I'm sure. We can scale up our patrols, but no stepping on their toes. Got it?
As you command, my lord.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Hey, stop. There we go. Here's our boy. Oh, fetch. There he is. All right. So now we've seen, it's been a year. I think we're going to stop here. It was kind of a short episode as far as the content goes. I went on a humongous rant. I haven't done that in a while. Please forgive me. Understand a lot of it came from a source of passion too. I don't wish ill of any leaders, political, financial, otherwise. Like, I have no right to do a true commentary on their lives because I don't know their lives. I've not been them. It's easy when sitting on the outside to make judgments, which is exactly what this part is talking about too. Jacopo is understanding that there's a whole other perspective that he never saw before. It was easy just to be like, the Lord this, the Lord that, bad, bad, bad. Yes, he was horrible, and it's great he's gone. But a lot of the things he was dealing with aren't as simple as just slapping on a band-aid and saying you're good. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and his priorities are going to be shifting in the direction that he needs in order to maintain what he's got. And that's quickly going to undo a lot of the hopes that he had because he just didn't understand how unrealistic those hopes were. So perhaps my goals and comments are very unrealistic. In fact, I would say they probably are. So it shouldn't be taken with a grain of salt. I do think there is relevance to what I said, though. I think people with enough power and enough authority and enough money have more ability to do than they currently do. But again, I just think that you don't get to those heights if you have the attitude of wanting to make those types of changes and make those types of policies. And so that makes me skeptical of them. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Enough of the soapboxing. I need to get some rest. I need to give myself a break, and I thank you so much for sticking it out with me. Thank you especially to the patrons. You guys are amazing. It's been really fun working with you this past weekend. Getting ready for next week's Democracy Week. I'm going to be commenting with you, and I'm going to be doing a patron cast for January coming out this weekend, where I'm going to kind of finalize everything, kind of run things past you, and you'll have like a day to add any last minute thoughts before we roll out to the whole channel of Democracy Week. So thank you for that. Give them thanks if you can, because these guys and gals are believing in the channel and directly making things possible to help make it so I can step up production, I can step up content. It's a huge blessing, and I really owe a lot to you. Thank you. I also owe a lot to those of you who are watching these videos, who are leaving comments and likes and subscribing. Like, just because they're free and they're easy clicks doesn't mean that it's not incredibly valuable for the channel and helping us grow, so thank you so much. It means the world to me. I hope you're enjoying the trip. I hope you're just enjoying this whole story, and like, I'd love to know your thoughts and comments about what I said in this video. Even if this seems controversial, even if you don't agree with me, please make sure to share your thoughts and comments. Understand that everything I said is opinion. Everything I said is based on my experiences, which are not yours and not the experiences of many. And so likely you can shed some light on my perspectives in ways that can help me grow as a person. So please be respectful, but share what you're thinking. I appreciate your guys' comments. I love hearing from each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing you in future videos. So until the next video watching me, ever see me in next, I'll see you there.